First Book of Kings, chapters 12 and 13 today, which picks up immediately after the death of Solomon. If you recall, he died at the end of the previous video in disgrace, having gone off with lots of fake gods and wrong ladies. Unclear actually if he went to hell or anything. I mean, there's been no mention of hell yet, but it's an interesting thought that could have been a thing. We open this part anyway with a chap called Rehoboam. Rehoboam, weird name. One of Solomon's sons who becomes the king of Israel. But there is a complication because there's another chap called Jeroboam that it seems God has said to that he is going to be the king of Israel. So it's all getting a little bit complicated. Israel, anyway, rebels against Rehoboam, seemingly because he's just really horrible and just makes some really nasty things done and makes some horrible judgments. But it notes that as part of this, the chap who was the head of the forced labour department is stoned to death by the people. I must admit I'm kind of cool with that because it helps that it's 3,000 years ago, but that's his job to force labour stuff. So yeah, that's fine. Most of Israel therefore goes for Jeroboam as king, but the tribe of Judah stays with Rehoboam. And just to mention the previous one, there was this idea that it looked like it was going to fracture. But Rehoboam then raises an army, despite the fact he's only got 1/12 of Israel, and is about to go to battle with Jeroboam to try and take back the kingdom, when God sends him a message saying, no, don't worry, this Jeroboam thing is my doing, just all go home. And remarkably, they do. They just step back and all go home. All very odd. This is a particularly odd story, this one. Jeroboam, anyway, despite having just had his opponents sent home by God, decides that he's now worried that he's going to be overthrown, not clear why at all, and as part of that he can't go to the temple in Jerusalem to do his prayers and atonement and all the rest of it. So just try and get around this problem, he just makes himself a couple of golden calves and sets them up as gods instead. I mean, sort of genius, but with some obvious problems. We then move on to another sort of slightly random part where by the word of God it says an unnamed man from Judah appears and goes to Jeroboam's altar where he's got his altar to his fake god, and in earshot of Jeroboam proclaims that at some point a man called Josiah is going to be born and he's going to sacrifice the priests, as in Jeroboam's priests, as in the people, on this altar, and it's going to be pretty terrible. And as a sign to back this up, he says that the altar is going to split in two and ash is going to pour out. Perhaps unsurprisingly, Jeroboam does a bit of a "seize him" type thing. But as he reaches out his hand to point, it shrivels up, and pretty scary, I imagine. Perhaps unsurprisingly, Jeroboam's reaction is a bit sort of, no, wait, I've changed my mind. And his hand grows back. It's very weird. But then, just as the unnamed man said, the altar splits in two and the ash all falls out. It's very, very odd. Just to get even more weird, the unnamed man who came and prophesied this then leaves the town. It specifies he left by a different path than he came in because he had to do that and whatever. But then another old unnamed prophet follows this chap, catches up with him, tricks him into eating with him when he shouldn't really be doing that, and gets him killed by a lion. And it's like, what? It's so bizarre. It then notes that the lion doesn't maul the man or kill him or anything, and the old prophet goes after him, gets him, picks him up, puts him on his donkey, takes him home and buries him. So very odd. And just to put a sort of really weird, I guess, weird cherry on top of the cake, Jeroboam, despite all this proof that God exists and his hand shriveling up and coming back again, carries on being a complete punk. So yeah. In the short version of that story anyway, we have Israel splits, albeit not equally. God seems to endorse a really terrible person to be king, and one prophet gets another prophet killed for no apparent reason whatsoever. In terms of the interesting points to pull out from that, I don't really have any. It's more a case of questions than actual answers. So I've just jotted down some questions of why we now got a bad king. Again, that's just why would God choose a bad king? The bad king is also a bit of an idiot because he knows God exists because his hand did the shrivel thing and God told him he was going to be king, and yet deliberately goes off and worships other gods or fake gods. What the hell was the old prophet doing? Just randomly getting another prophet killed, and it was just so odd. And how are these priests going to be burnt on the altar that's now split in two and ashes falling out of it? It's all very odd. Actually, for a cherry on top of that, it's the question of, it says, by the word of God, this unnamed man from Judah comes along. But what is by the name of God? Was it by the name of God? By the word of God, sorry. What does by the word of God mean? The Genesis thing, obviously, it was God speaking the universe into existence. So is that saying God spoke this chap into existence? I do not know. The whole Old Testament's difficult to read, but this is getting weirder and weirder and more questions, but we shall soldier on anyway and see if we can find some answers in the next bit.